We are blessed. We are grateful, yes? Here's our new mantra. April flurries bring May beauties. I think the new deal is on our Earth environment is that it just snows once a week from here on out, and it's pretty much gone the next day. It is beautiful, and spring is coming, so have faith. Kate said something about spring coming, and I heard a voice behind me say, it's not coming. And I turned and said, oh, ye of little faith. It is coming, right? The beauty is there. The seeds are waiting to arise. Green stuff, I know. My backyard, what do you call those? Hostas. That's the extent of my gardening. I love looking at it though, right? Bill, that's the extent of our gardening. Hostas that come up. I have some good news about my brain therapy, which we talked about last week. It appears that my brain is in some semblance of balance. So I've been graduated from brain therapy this week. And I wanted to share just one fun little story. Toward the end of the session, she said, we've done the depth perception thing, right? And I said, no, we haven't. So the stuff comes up on the screen, and there's a black circle in the center of the screen, and then they're like squares, but they're open to the circle. And she said, okay, either the circle jumps off the screen or not, and then there's one of the squares matches the circle. And I said, what? So she explained it again. And I'm looking at it, and then you swipe on the little remote, you swipe the circle toward the direction of the one and so I just picked a swipe and swiped it. And I said, so I guess I'll just guess. And she goes, no, it's not a guess. Either the screen is coming off the circle or not, and there's a square that matches it. And I'm like, I don't see anything coming off the screen or not, and everything looks the same. So I scored a 1 on the depth perception test, which is not new. So I was thinking on the way over here, if ever you find my front bumper attached to your back bumper, it is nothing personal. And I have a greater understanding. I mean, I knew I had depth perception issues, but I have a greater understanding of why Bill Graham drives with the right hand brake on. Most of the time. We need one of those driver's ed cars, don't we, Bill? He's very cool about it. He doesn't do the big gasp and sharp intake of air. He just steps on the brake. Speaking of brain therapy and balance, living in balance, a dynamic approach, they're not kidding, dynamic approach for creating harmony and wholeness in a chaotic world. First of all, that requires a belief that our world is chaotic. Does that concept interest you? Creating harmony and wholeness in a chaotic world. And I'm thinking that this idea, the concept of living in balance, certainly could mean something different to each and every one of us. So let's give this a thought for a moment. What does living in balance look like for you? Any area of life, any aspect of life. What does it mean for you? What does it look like for you? Living in balance, what comes to mind? Not a rhetorical question. It's a real question. Nutrition. Who said that? Simplicity.
Ease and grace.
Can you feel the oxygen in the room? Nutrition, Simplicity, ease, and grace. What else is balance? When you feel like your life is in balance, what's going on?
Work versus family.
Yes.
Say it again.
Work versus family.
Versus work and family. That's my old mantra, work versus family. But did you hear that? But, and work and family. Good one. Harmony. Not hearing anybody talk about play. Do we play enough?
I was thinking about it the whole time. Because playing drums, to me, that's excitement and fun. But then I go back to family and duty. And I have to balance it, or it doesn't, none of it works. Work and play.
Family, duty, work, and play. Yeah, we're getting the idea of it's not an either or, right? It's not family or work. It's not work or play. Work is play, isn't it, Ruth?
Yes, it is. Especially with my new computer.
We have new technology in our live stream department. We have new technology in our administrator's office. And you know how we can do that? Circulation, kids. We are they. It's very cool. We're excited. The other computer was 10 years old? Oh, just 6. Which in computer life is ancient. So in the big picture, when we really do think about balance, look at all the areas that got mentioned, and there are, of course, many more. In the big picture, there are so many levels and so many dimensions to the idea of balance. So perhaps in unity speak, we would most commonly refer to balance as living from a place of balancing mind, body, spirit, the whole enchilada. And this book, which we found in used condition, it's not a brand new book. It is, what did we say, Ruth, 97? No, 98. And just amazing stuff. So we ordered 2 or 3 copies of it. It'll be in the bookstore. If you're interested, let Ruth know that you want one and she'll hold it for you. So the book is set up in 4 sections, and the first section is an inside-out approach to balanced living. And because of our teachings in Unity, I think we know that it has to be an inside-out deal. Would you agree that on a daily basis, life presents us all with opportunities for living in balance? Daily basis. You know, Josh made the comment, love is a choice. And I was thinking earlier this morning about the idea of truly living in balance. And what came to me is it's a simple intention. It doesn't start unless we have the intention. And this book is jam-packed. I have hundreds of pages turned down because it's jam-packed with practices. Some are meditations, some are physical things that we can do, and some are journaling exercises. So it begins with intention, and then it's what we would call putting feet on our prayers. It's incorporating new methods, new techniques in our spiritual practice. My intention is that today can be a participatory service. So we're going to be doing a few things, and if you choose to participate, that's great. And if it's not for you, then just stay in your seat. Anybody game for participating in balance? Now, have you noticed when we think about this idea of balance, of how it really is this interplay between inner and outer forces. There's what's going on in here, and then there's what's going on out here, which is often named chaotic. And I don't know what you all call what's going on in here. I just call it busy. Busy. So think about the outer forces, and let's get in touch for a moment with the idea of gravity, a magnetic force, right? Keeps us anchored on the planet, for one thing. Keeps the planets where they are in alignment, keeps the stars where they are. It's this humming harmony of the universe. And Unity co-founder Charles Fillmore would have called divine love an example. I'm saying that backwards. Would have called gravity an example of divine love, because it's a great magnetic force that keeps everything in harmony. So that's one example of an outer force. Think about the inner activity of balance. Have you noticed that for every inhale, there's an exhale? Can't inhale twice in a row, can you? Well, I guess you could if you wanted to just drop over. That'd be the result of that, right? Did you notice that we're being breathed? Don't have to remind ourselves to either inhale or exhale. It happens. Our bodies know how to do that. Our bodies know how to digest fluids and solids that we put in our body, break all that down for the appropriate nutrients that our body needs to sustain and thrive. Some more examples of balance. There's the inhale, the exhale. There is the sun rises and the sun sets. Not one without the other. Have you noticed? The seasons, thank you EPA, who, that's right, we're not political. So the seasons come and go. There's a balance of solitude and social time. How are you doing with that? And that balance looks very different for many of us. My balance in solitude needs to be way higher than social time. That's different for everybody. How about the balance of quiet and noise? A television, a radio, a CD. Even if there is quote unquote no noise, I notice that I can still hear and feel the hum of electricity, of energy moving. And how about the balance between activity and rest? Being on the move and on the go and being still. So do you notice the movement? Do you notice the rhythms? Do you notice that when we're talking about balance, standing on that teeter-totter board, she added something new this week. I got to stand on the teeter-totter board and not only balance it, but I had to tip it from one side to the other and stay upright. So there's movement. Nothing is static when we're talking about balance. And it's interesting to note that living in balance is not about finding a stationary point, a mental, emotional, spiritual, physical stationary point. We're not here to fix ourselves within a certain point on the continuum, right? We're always moving and evolving. And that's a divine paradox, because as human beings, and as we look around at the relative realm or earthly realm, change is always happening. We are changing and evolving. I can't remember how many millions of cells get refurbished and recirculated and recycled every day. So there's this constant change going on, and the divine paradox is there's this unchanging energy of us. There's this absolute energy of us, which is God energy, our true nature, our divine nature, unchanging. And I believe that this aspect of us, this, what I call the core of us, this unchanging nature, is what is calling us, ever calling us to balance, to remember how to be, and to remember that it's like the lyrics in Nina's song. It lives within us. We are everything we need to be in order to demonstrate balance. Do we think that when we're talking about living in balance, that means we never slip off the tightrope of life? Anybody go, say, 24 hours without at least dangerously teetering? No, it doesn't mean that we don't fall off. It doesn't mean we don't slip. It doesn't mean that we never wake up in the ditch and turn over and wonder how we got there and when we veered off the road. That's part of our everyday experience. Do you think that living in balance means that we always show up as the perfect spiritual being that we came here to be? Show of hands. Well, I guess that's just limited to ministers. So my sense is that life proves to us that's not the way of it. That living in balance means all of that, And I liken this idea of living in balance to my theory of the spiritual continuum. You know, there's spiritually asleep, spiritually unconscious, and there's fully spiritual, fully awake. There's way out of balance, and there's fully in balance. So are we ever fully one or the other? Are we ever in balance or out of balance? Or are we simply at some spectrum on the continuum? Do you ever feel like you sort of get one area of life, kind of managed, get it in divine order, then you turn your head and notice this other area that's way out of whack? That's part of the balance too, is looking at all these aspects of our life, our relationships, our work, our creative expression, our financial world, our all kinds of things that we can be looking at. The idea of living in balance is really about mindfulness and awareness. It's really about, it's only the awareness that we're out of balance that reminds us to bring ourselves back toward balance, right? It's only when we've noticed, oh, wow. Like I said last week, when did it become okay to not take care of physical things that are going on with my body? When did it become okay to live with something for 8 or 10 years and go, oh, I could get that checked out. Maybe it doesn't have to be painful. So we don't realize we're out of balance. When we start to notice that brings the new intention of stepping back into balance. So it's not about struggling, not about white knuckling it to stay on the tightrope. It's not about forcing balance. It's about, I heard something really good It's about ease and grace. It's about simplicity. It's about coming in harmony. So instead of tightening every muscle to stay on the tightrope, to stay on the balance road, we learn the art of staying in balance by easing our grip on the steering wheel of life, easing our grip on our fear of the ditch. Have we been in the ditch? Yes. Will it happen again? Likely. Do we live to tell about it? Most of the time. So to that note, I would like to share this quote. If we can learn to dance with the innumerable paradoxes of life while staying anchored in the extraordinary suppleness and flexibility, we can create the stability necessary to find balance in life. Learn to dance with the innumerable paradoxes while staying anchored in extraordinary suppleness and flexibility. Does that make you think of yoga?
Brenda, I was going to say that my favorite time in yoga is when people come out of Savasana and they're so at peace and so balanced at that very moment. It's
So,
beautiful.
what Cindy's talking about is called Savasana, one of my favorite parts of yoga. At the end of the session, you are lying on your back on the mat, palms up, everything's relaxed, and that's my time for prayer, that I'm integrating the whole practice. And Cindy, who's a yoga instructor, is saying her favorite time is coming out of that with the class, and just you see it and you feel it, how the energy has shifted in the room. So for those of us who are on intention of being in balance, here's one practice that we can add to our homework list this week. I think you have a little note sheet in your program, so if you're interested in participating, grab a pen. We have 3 questions to consider in our meditation time this week. What signs in my life show that I'm living more or less in balance? And again, you can look at any aspect of your life, any area of your life. So what indications or signs can I point to that say I know I'm in balance when? I live in balance when? That's question number 1. Question number 2, quote, 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 out of balance. What signs or indications can I look at or point to in my life that demonstrate that I'm out of balance? So, what shows that I'm in balance? What shows that I'm out of balance? Here's the good one. What beliefs, thoughts, and assumptions led me to those answers? And we talked about, I shared some of mine last week, so that may give you an example. Something good to consider this week for our balance intention, those 3 questions. So before we head into meditation time today, I invite you, if you choose, to participate in a couple of physical balance exercises. So for those who are willing and able, it requires standing. And you want just a little bit of room between you and your neighbor. I'm going to turn sideways because this is standing in balance. So first of all, just our feet are about shoulder width apart. And just stand in your natural way of being. And for most of us, when we're standing in our natural way of being, our pelvis is tucked back, and so there's a curvature in our low back. So if you just put your hand on your abdomen and your hand on your lower spine and tuck that pelvis under, it's not pushing it or forcing it or tightening it, it's just moving it. Notice that that requires some core to hold that there. And did you notice what happened to your shoulders? When we tuck our pelvis, our shoulders straighten and come back. Now again, without forcing or pushing, just lift that another smidgen and bring those shoulder blades together. Breathe into that for a moment. This is alignment. This is actually physically being in balance, standing in balance. Pelvic tuck, shoulders up, your shoulder blades coming together. That also aligns our head so that we're not leaning into life. We're receptive, flexible. What was the other word? Supple. So I invite you to include that in your practice. Just when you notice how you're walking, how you're standing. When we walk the pups, I'm usually behind Bill. His legs are longer than mine. And I'll look up at him and go, bring your shoulders back. So it's just an intention. And did you notice when you do that, how there feels like there's more oxygen all of a sudden? I call it opening my wings. Okay, this is a physical one and it's a sitting one. This one they call rocking into balance. So it starts with, I'm swaying from the feet, but you'll be sitting. So this is moving your upper body, gently swaying from side to side, just as far over as you want to comfortably go. Sway at your own speed. It may be in time with a breath. It may be in time with a beat in your head. And obviously when you do these exercises at home, you'll have more time to invest in them. So the idea here is that we begin swaying side to side in a pretty broad range. And over time, we start to bring that range inward. And so we're swaying not quite so far to the left and to the right. And again, we're stretching this out over time. And eventually, we come to the center. We come to the core. Then we sway forward and backward. Again, a broad range as you're comfortable with. Again, stretching this out over time, just feeling the rhythm of it. And we start to narrow our range. And eventually we come to center. So there's no set amount of time to it. Even investing those few seconds, do you feel the difference? Because this not only centers us physically, but it's also a brain centering. It's a mind, body, spirit centering. Comfortable in your seats. One of the meditations in here, they call it balancing sound and silence. I have a plaque somewhere. I can't remember if it's in my office or in the little fireplace den, but something along the lines of silence. Silence isn't when there, is no noise. Silence is when we can come to stillness. I really butchered that quote, but it's along those ideas. So as we start to settle into meditation this morning, I invite you to first notice the outer.
Brenda, I'm sorry. Since it's silence and sound, do you want me to not play?
Yes, I want you to play.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Play.
All right.
Play, Nina, play. So notice whatever sounds you're hearing. It could be people rustling around, getting comfortable. It could be moving books or papers from your lap. It could be someone clearing their throat, coughing. Sound of my voice. If we get really good at this, we can hear snow falling, one of my favorite sounds. And the thing about noticing the sounds is simply that there's nothing for us to change, there's nothing for us to resist, there's nothing for us to manage or control. I notice the sound of the siren. I notice the sound of the dog barking. I notice the sound of the television in the next room. It's what Robert Brummett would call insight meditation. Awareness, mindfulness, noticing. And we set our intention of letting that be. We don't have to name it a distraction and interference. And we move our attention inward. We realize metaphysically that chaos, it looks chaotic out there, and it's a reflection of our inner chaos. So just check around our thoughts streaming through us. Like my friend Martha would say, we are being thought. And those thoughts stream through us. Sometimes it seems like 1,000 miles an hour. There's thought. All we have to do is name it. There's a thought. There's a thought. I find it very soothing, the sound of train wheels on a track, the rhythm. And those thoughts become cars in our train of thought. Creates a rhythm moving through us. Nothing to manage, nothing to chase, nothing to change. Allowing thoughts to be. We notice our breath. Breathing in peace. Breathing out frustration. Breathing in balance. Breathing out chaos. Following our breath to the very core of us, the sacred inner altar. Unchanging, eternal, infinite. In the silence, we allow ourselves to immerse. Might be deep peace. Might be balance. It might be wholeness. Prosperity. Divine love. In this holy moment, we allow ourselves to be fully supported. I live in a friendly universe. I am supported always and in all ways. Be still and know that I am. But if one listens a little harder and a little longer, one comes to hear silence. That silence is an integral part of life. Silence is not simply the absence of sound. Rather, it is the presence of the dimension of time, a realization of the instant and the situation. Furthermore, it is an expression of the completeness of the situation. In a very real way, silence is heard as an integral part of existence. And so it is. Amen. So be that.